Hello, Canada. Welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Guy. Well, been really busy. I came across some documents here while I was kind of helping some animals give birth and getting some stuff done around the farm and just appointments and stuff that I had. I'm a little late on reporting on this, but this kind of came out earlier. I was gonna do an emergency kind of broadcast thing, but I decided not to. It ended up being not necessarily proven yet as kind of factual, although it does explain a lot of what's going on, and it would make total sense because we've always known that Carney's vested in the States, the whole Green New Deal, and he's going to try and do anything he can to protect his investments and those people that he represent, which I always, the global cabal, the green radical zealot religion that they are. And he's already thrown Canada under the bus many times in a lot of the things that he's done. He doesn't care. He doesn't care, people. We're gonna dabble on this report. We're just gonna kind of read it over. I've been trying to do some background fact checking on this, and like I said, it's kind of the only report out there. It does seem to really nail it. It does join itself to a bunch of facts that in my previous episodes I've been kind of pointing out. But like I said, we'll go over it. It does make sense. Let's just see what happens with it. We're going to touch on a few more things as well. The Conservative has got another crossover. This guy's not really a crossover. He was a Conservative. He actually left the Conservative. Now he's coming back to the Conservative. So I don't know. It really seems like the appointed representation that we have are all the same. It seems like there's only really maybe 5% of the people who are actually in the Senate that are actually there representing their people. Like these flip-floppers, and I don't know what's going on. Something's not making sense. Like I know Carney's definitely worse than Governor Turd ever could have been. But to the voters, he seems better because he won. So, like I said, there's a lot of... This is all... I wish I could tell you a fact that I knew what was going on, but something's fishy. Something smells rotten in the state of Parliament. No doubt about that. We're going to dabble on a few other things here, especially this whole Israel. I've got some crazy footage that has been posted that I'm going to share with you. It seems as though this is going to go down as the most accurate, pinpoint, mass devastation strike in military history. Every plane that Iran has that didn't get into the air didn't make it. That's how accurate this was. They were racing to get their planes off the tarmac because they knew if they stayed on the ground, they were goners. As well as the nuclear facilities, scientific facilities, the priming stations, which are all of the areas in which they do the preloads, the charges, and then the assembly for all of their bombs, missiles, drone technology went off. There's some amazing footage where you see the domino effect. This is just just an amazing military. I don't even know how to say it. It's like the first move in chess that checkmates it. I don't know what Iran has left. And again, there's a lot of propaganda out there, but I've been going over these, verifying the videos, and there's a lot that people are trying to post from like months ago already. So it's really hard to kind of, I've been using Grok Steady just to kind of make sure I'm verifying everything the best that I can. Pretty crazy. And then we got a guy who shoots a warning shot. So 4 guys drive up into his yard, try to steal this guy's Lamborghini. Now, I don't care, rich, poor, who you are. Somebody's coming to steal your crap. I'm sorry, I'm a libertarian. I believe you have every right to use any means necessary because they've already broken they've already broken the most trusted law that a government can give you, which is the right to life, liberty. Well, that's American, but we don't have any rights here in Canada. But and ownership. Who, just because a man or a lady owns a Lamborghini doesn't mean that they can afford to have it stolen. They may have saved up their entire life and blew their life savings to buy that car. I know a lot of people who have their pride and joy. They live a very modest life, and everything they have is invested in a vehicle or a boat or a collection of guns or this is where their life savings are. So for someone to come up and try to take it, I believe what are you going to do? So anyways, this guy fires a warning shot off. 4 guys run. Luckily, the cops were already called. They charge the 4 guys and arrest the guy who shot the warning shot for defending his property. This is Canada. This is ridiculous. Absolutely just ridiculous. And in the same day, we get a guy who gets shot, de-lifed in his own house. Our laws are a joke. The entire justice system in Canada is farcical. It's just embarrassing. And then we're going to tie on a few more things here to fill out the news and this whole news hour. But let's just kind of get started on this document. This is kind of a bombshell in its own way. But like I said, we're going to have to take it with a grain of salt. I believe it personally just because I read a lot of the conversations that go on through X, the threads that follow, and a lot of the par followers who are all part of the hierarchy and how the chatter is amongst them. Like even with this attack from Israel, I knew this was coming. I wasn't going to say anything because I didn't have any guarantee, but in the back of my mind, I knew it because Trump actually put out a tweet 2 days ago warning everybody, you might want to be coming home and getting out of the Middle East. And everybody's like, well, what's Trump mean about that? And now everybody's kind of not really talking about that. Well, he did. He was warning people. And then when they asked him, he's like, well, you'll see. And they're like, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, you'll see. He didn't want to give it away. You can't give the tactics away. But that was a forewarning. Anyways, so let's get on to this kind of a bombshell, but not really a bombshell report. So Carney's colossal Canada-U.S. pact. Now, he sold us out. We already know that. But this explains a lot about Eby and Doug Ford with their bills to circumvent their own rules and law that they put in order to kind of do whatever they want. And then the federal government following suit with their own bill. It just figures the 3 biggest liberals, and even though they fly the flags of a conservative and an NDP, they're liberals. Don't forget, Eby is a full-fledged diehard, and he's not an old school liberal. He's the New Liberal Party. He's just like the New Liberals. He's a socialist. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about you. Nor does Doug Ford. Okay, Carney's colossal Canada-U.S. pact. It would give America the first right of refusal on Canadian minerals. So now I can explain to you what it is, but I figured, you know what? I'm just going to show you the actual definition. And here it is. The right of first refusal, ROFR, is a contractual right that gives its holder the option to be the first buyer and match an offer made by a third party to purchase an asset, or 2, refuse to match the offer following the seller to proceed with selling it to another party. So in other words, they give them the right to a monopoly. So a lot of people could say, well, this is just protecting them in a time of war. What kind of war? An economic war? A corporate war? Because it gives him the control to do all of that. So this doesn't just fall. If it would have fallen under just the pretense of war, we would have heard about that. I'm sure they would have wrote about it in this article, and they didn't. So this is Carney just gave the United States free reign on all of our minerals. Period. Let's go through it. Canada has made the crucible for Donald Trump's rambunctious trade and foreign policy. America's president had his northern neighbor in his sights before he was even inaugurated. As world leaders flocked to Alberta on June 15th for the G7 summit, Canada is on the verge of cementing its place in the vanguard of Trumpian geopolitics. It may soon become the first country to emerge from the bewildering thicket of tariffs and threats with a sweeping new pact on security and trade. Caprice has been Mr. Trump's calling card, so no one is declaring a done deal. But its outlines have already been negotiated. Mr. Trump will lift the tariffs on Canada's exports in exchange for guaranteed access to the country's critical minerals. During his election campaign, Mark Carney, Canada's Prime Minister, told Canadians that Mr. Trump wanted to break us so that America can own us. Now, don't forget that, because he did. He was all... And then we know that in a conversation he had, he even told Trump, as he stuck his nose right up Trump's arse, that if you don't mind, I'm gonna have to call you down and make you look bad and really, because I gotta beat you to win. So we already know this whole liberal, typical new liberal party is all lies. He has no backbone to what he says. Nothing. This guy's a waste of skin. You can't trust any of the new liberals. None of them. This is why all the old liberals fled the party. And the few that are remaining, those are the socialists that were trying to change the party hardcore left to begin with. So that it is what it is. If the deal goes through, he may find it hard to explain why he's made such a monumental deal with the breaker-in-chief. The deal has been in the offering since Mr. Carney visited the White House on May 6th, a week after his Liberal Party won a historic fourth term. At Mr. Trump's Oval Office press conference, Mr. Carney declared that, having met with the owners of Canada during the course of the campaign, it's not for sale. But in private discussions across the hall in the Roosevelt rooms of the contours of Fortress Can-Am were already being hammered out. Can-Am, that's such a... I love the way they're playing on that word. By the way, that's a direct insult to Dougie. Dougie, not the brother, Dougie. He keeps on trying to he's inventing a word, this Can-Am, and it'll never happen. It's called America First, and because you voted Liberals, we're the 51st state. Bunch of dummies. Okay, so before going to Washington, Mr. Carney asked officials to list the Canadian products that Mr. Trump needs the most. Rare earth elements and critical minerals top the bill. A continental agreement would free the United States from its reliance on China for the extraction and refining of these resources. They are vital to the production of magnets that go into engines, resonators, and navigation systems for everything from missiles to fighter jets. The F-35 Lightning II alone, the multi-role fighter most NATO countries have ordered, requires over 400 kilograms of rare earth elements. High-tech equipment of all kinds, from batteries to semiconductors, require rare earth and critical minerals, whose supply is often dominated by countries that Mr. Trump dislikes trading with. Tariffs were meant to force manufacturers to set up shop in the United States, but they are also stunting investment in the mining of these critical elements in Canada. So Canadian negotiators are using the national security imperative to get them lifted. Flavio Volpe, head of Canada's Association of Auto Parts Manufacturers, notes that the White House wants to repatriate manufacturing, but they don't get to repatriate resources. People briefed on the negotiations say the United States would be guaranteed first right of refusal on Canadian resources. Do you hear that? That's not just critical minerals. Resources. That is quite a prize at a time when countries around the world are scrambling to line up their supplies. What is Canada's number one resource? What is the largest factor of gross domestic product in Canada? That is our oil and gas. Are you hearing this, Alberta and Saskatchewan? Parts of BC? Parts of Manitoba? This is why you gotta flee. You gotta flee. You've just been sold out again. Unbelievable. You didn't even have the right to barter. You didn't even have your constitutional right. He just gave it away. Done and gone. Resources don't belong to the federal government. They belong to the provinces. That may explain why Mr. Trump wants to deal with Canada, but why would Mr. Carney work with the man who's repeatedly said he wants to swallow his country? Probably because Mr. Trump's tariffs are not just stifling investment, but beginning to hurt Canadian workers. Unemployment hit 7% in May, pandemic aside. That is the highest rate since 2016. Now, this is where this report goes a little off. Unemployment has been steadily rising. The graph is a perfect graph. It follows our GDP almost perfectly. There was a mild little in it, but it hasn't changed the bar. The bar itself has been steadily climbing up and up. All of this was foretold by economists 2 years ago, warning, because the signs were already showing. So that's where I said you can't necessarily trust what these people are saying, because they're already kind of, they're off fact right there. Economists say trade between Canada and the United States is mid-collapse. Canada's overall trade deficit more than tripled between March and April, from $2.3 billion to $7.1 billion. That is the result of tariffs on the economy that sent 76% of its exports to the United States in 2024. Mr. Carney has vowed to diversify Canada's trading options so that it is never again so dependent on a single trading partner. But it will be years before Canada can escape the gravity of the world's largest consumer market, that it is so easily accessible by rail or lorry, if it ever can. The deteriorating Canadian economy compels Mr. Carney to act now to maintain access to the market that has been responsible for Canada's prosperity for close to a century. Access to minerals is not the only thing Mr. Carney is offering. On the campaign trail, he said Canada would spend the equivalent of 2% of GDP on defense by 2030. On June 9th, he announced a dramatic acceleration, saying Canada would in fact hit 2% by March 2026 by spending an extra $9.3 billion, most of which will go on recruitment and increasing soldiers' pay. Critical mineral exploitation is expensive. Canada's reserves of uranium, tungsten, vanadium, and graphite are all in isolated areas. Roads will need to be carved out of the wilderness. Processing plants will have to be built where there is little existing infrastructure. A pact that guarantees decades of American businesses would probably push firms currently sitting on the sidelines with stacks of cash to invest in one of his century's mining booms. One of these mega projects run through Indigenous lands. Canada has a constitutional duty to consult its First Nations before proceeding with resource development. Many Indigenous leaders remain wary. Hey, you all voted. All the areas that are pretty much predominantly Indigenous voted Liberal. I've been warning them. I've been begging and pleading. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. The Liberals are your worst enemy, and the NDP are like they've been horrible. You keep voting in the NDP and the Liberals. Look where we are today. How many generations are going to keep repeating the past, condemning the next generation to live the same thing? We've got to change this. Parties need to be decimated, completely decimated, so that a phoenix can be born out of the ashes. Something with more truth, with more transparency, more reality, and get rid of the full-time politicians, and let's start electing truth people, real people who aren't afraid to speak their mind. We got to crush mainstream media, number one, got to stop the propaganda machine, and then we got to just start decimating these parties. We got way too many of them, and like I've said on previous episodes, every single person stood up in Parliament and applauded like a seal in heat when that Nazi was introduced. Not a single person in there knew history enough for them to go, wait a minute, what? That tells you right there isn't a single person in Parliament that I believe truly has the right to lead us into the future. I like a lot of policies, and I knew that obviously I couldn't throw my vote to a party that didn't exist. So you vote for the lesser of two evils to try to control, I was hoping that we could have decimated the Liberal Party so that they could have been reborn, cleaned right out, and started back up something closer to what they were 20 years ago, but no. We're on a downhill trend. Socialism's taken over our country. Anyways, back to this report. The pact that guarantees decades of American businesses would probably push firms currently sitting on the sidelines with stacks of cash to invest in one of this century's mining booms. But these mega projects run through Indigenous lands. Canada has constitutional duty to consult its First Nations before proceeding with resource development. Many Indigenous leaders remain wary. Now, I read that again because it's the way he's wording it. He should have put in there, the Indigenous do not have a veto. They have the right to sit at the table and discuss negotiations, But natives can't. The indigenous. That doesn't matter where you are. You cannot shut down a project. So yeah, they should have worded that. But again, like I said, there's a lot of things about this where it reads like a could be CTV, it could be propaganda. I don't know. These kinds of projects can take decades to go from planning to full production. Any deal would almost certainly only bear fruit beyond the political lifespan of both Mr. Carney and the president, who favors leverage over the letter of agreement he has championed. The peril to the national security of the United States might tame that Trumpian tendency in this instance. Now, this was put up and it was removed. So we don't know this could very well be another liberal ploy. They're good at this. They're socialists, man. They're socialists, like they're fascists pretending to be socialists. And this is what they do. They manipulate and use media. So this could be a softening ticket to kind of appease two sides, divide the few in the middle, and cause a little wee bit more chaos, only to give that little wee bit of extra support to the Liberal Party. Because it doesn't necessarily guarantee anything, but yet it does show action for one side that he's getting something done. It does show something for the other side that he's going to push in order to get projects built. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if I trust it. I agree with a lot of things in there. If he did sign the right to first refusal on our resources, it's illegal. The provinces can take him to court. So, I don't know if Mr. Trump knows this, but the piece of paper, it might as well be toilet paper, because it's going to get wiped and tossed and flushed the second that province gets wind of it and realizes that you have the first right to buy and take away the negotiating and barter skills of what that province does. You don't have that right. Sorry, Carney. You're not the king. Anyways, moving on.
News, Mark Carney has banned Rebel News journalists from reporting from the G7 summit this weekend in Alberta. So we have just filed an emergency lawsuit against him with the Federal Court of Canada. That's the same court that slapped down Trudeau's repeated attempts to censor Rebel News. You can see our new lawsuit for yourself by going to our special website, letusreport.com. At that site, you'll find 4 short documents. Number 1, a letter to Mark Carney's Attorney General, Sean Fraser. Number 2, a letter to the federal court explaining our need for an emergency hearing tomorrow. Part 3, the emergency lawsuit itself, called a notice of application. And Part 4, the facts of the case as outlined in an affidavit by Sheila Gunn-Reid, our chief reporter. I really encourage you to look at those documents at letusreport.com for yourself. They're actually really short. The letter to the Attorney General is just 1 sentence long. Basically, here's the lawsuit. The letter to the court is a page and a half. The key sentences from that are these. We are writing to make an informal request for a special hearing to have the application for an injunction heard remotely if possible and in the alternative in Calgary, and decided before the end of business on Friday, June 13th, 2025.
Now, he's a professional at this. And kudos to Ezra. He does this. He's been forced to do it from a socialist, fascist pretending to be socialist government. And he wins all the time. So it just depends on what judge he's going to get. If the judge is going to be a complete idiot, like, so many of them are, and just delay it long enough before they kind of have to pass. They're going to have to, because he's absolutely right. You can't ban him. And Carney does this hoping that, the Liberal Party does this hoping that they run into one of their besties, one of their, supporters that were appointed because they are, a lapdog of the Liberal regime, which too many of them are. And again, this is where I keep saying we gotta have a system set up so that we're not appointing judges. You shouldn't appoint a judge. A judge should be put in by their record. Especially with the technology we have today, it's really easy to design programs that can follow what the success rate of a judge is on society. How many reoffenders as opposed to how many people literally never had a chance. And you take the algorithm, you make it out so that it finds the perfect kind of the sweet spot, and those are the judges you want. They're the ones that are making the true balance of power, which is what you want. And always following our Constitution to the word, not to the word of the ideology that the appointed judges bring with them. Anyways, we're going to move on to this fourth, or I should say, third walking member now to this conservative Senate. Now, this guy was a conservative. He left and he came back. So conservatives add another senator to the ranks, boosting caucus to 14. Woohoo! Yeah, we're still getting our butts kicked. Over 90% are liberals. Trudeau made sure not only to screw with the Senate system and really make a mess of it. He destroyed it, people. It's got to be fixed, and you can guarantee Carney won't fix it, because he's pushing the same fascist ideology that the turd put in place, and the turd left his brown streaks on everything. It stinks to high heaven. So Quebec Senator Larry Smith has rejoined the Conservative caucus in the Canadian Senate, becoming the third senator to cross the floor to the Conservatives since early June. This move boosts the Conservative caucus to 14 members. Senators Mary Jane McCallum and David Adam Richards are also recently joined. The addition strengthened the Conservatives' position in the 105-member Senate, allowing them to maintain recognized status and enhance their ability to hold government accountable, despite two of the new additions retiring within next year. So yeah, okay. They're still so vastly outnumbered. It's nice. Yes, it's a good thing. Nice to see a couple more, join in. Canada's in big trouble, people. We need an elected Senate. Anyways, I'm going to post, as always, I post everything below. I'm one of the only guys that does it. In fact, I'm still the only person I know that actually does it. Posts everything down below. I do it for two reasons. I do it for the first reason because I want my audience to be able to have access to all the homework that I do, because a lot of this stuff takes time to find, and they can go through and they can read it in its entirety or watch the entirety of the clip. And also for those who are trying to look for ways to disprove what I'm saying. Now, the Israeli conflict, this isn't when it happened, obviously, because it's happened for hours. This is kind of a really good summary. I just want to play this out, and then I'm going to show you a whole bunch of footage that's been posted, raw footage that I went through and fact-checked. Used Grok in order to make sure, because a lot of people are posting old footage from earlier battles that these two have, volleyed across to each other, just to ensure that you're seeing the footage that's happened as of the last, whatever it is now, 12 hours. So let's just take a listen.
On what is now early morning in Israel. Trey.
Yeah, Trace, good evening. Overnight, Israel launched a series of strikes, according to the IDF, using dozens of fighter jets to target different positions across Iran, not only hitting the country's nuclear program and their ballistic missile supply, but also targeting individual leadership, including the head of the IRGC, Hussein Salami. This is the top military general in all of Iran, and according to Iranian state media, he is dead. There is currently a state of emergency declared across the entirety of Israel as this country braces for an expected Iranian response. I spoke tonight with an Israeli source who discussed what took place earlier in the evening. This source said Israel was able to surprise Iran. Israel managed to hit several targets in the heart of Tehran and to eliminate multiple senior Iranian regime leaders simultaneously in different spots. Now, at this hour, there are reports of additional explosions taking place in the Iranian capital of Tehran, an indication that the Israelis are continuing those waves of strikes. But again, the question now is, how will the Iranians respond? Israel has a variety of air defense systems, from David's Sling to the Arrow 2 and 3 systems. They also have Patriot missile defense systems and a THAAD system supplied by the United States. But as we saw during an Iranian missile attack back in October that included hundreds of ballistic missiles, this is not a perfect system. And it's part of the reason that Israel's Home Front Command, the branch of the military responsible for communicating with civilians, has ordered everyone in this country to stay close to bomb shelters. This is not a question of if Iran will respond, but rather when and where. We do expect the targets to be extensive, but Israel has prepared for this for not only months, but years. This was something that the Israelis said would have to happen if Iran's nuclear program continued to advance toward a nuclear weapon. We know President Trump tried to pursue as many diplomatic opportunities as possible. His Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, going back and forth to the region in Oman and Europe 5 separate times, meeting with Iranian counterparts, trying to get together some sort of agreement. But the Israelis said that they were too close to a nuclear weapon, according to sources that we have talked to. And again, the decision was made tonight to strike Iranian nuclear facilities. The latest information that we have, the Israeli cabinet met tonight. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the nation about what is taking place, but we do not expect this to be over in a short period of time. This is likely going to take a matter of weeks before it is complete, and we do expect Iranian missiles to target Israeli cities in possibly the hours or days ahead. Trace.
Trey, yeah.
So it sounds like Iran has already released some retaliation. We're not sure of the extent of it yet. I have lots of live streams going. They've all been told in Israel to hunker down, like he had said, and get right close to bomb shelters. So this is all going to be going down more than likely. Well, we're going to see the first series here within the hour. Now, I'm just going to show you a pile of raw footage that people have been posting on X. It's graphic, but like not blood and guts type of graphic. It's just the actual extent of the damages, and it's great to be able to actually see it in uncut, right? That's the key here, uncut. Where am I? Okay, so this is the footage of the Iranian nuclear storage. This actually isn't that great of footage. It kind of just misses it. They say it's over the amount of damage is more than 9 atomic bombs, with all of these different firings that they've shot off. That's kind of an equivalent that they're giving it. There's some, like I said, there's some great footage.
الله اکبر. چه صدایی. گوشت کجاست میشه که صداش که اومد به به اینا شیرش الله اکبر. خدای شکرت. یه دونه دیگه. به به به. کجاست کجاست کجاست.
الان نزدیک 30 تا.
Craziness. And it's not like the old days where they lob stuff. You can see these things steering their way, finding their targets. They move so fast. It's just absolutely, technology is crazy.
aşağı.
So those were the Army Air Force Base, the first shot. The second was the Aerospace Command Headquarters in Shikara, Tehran. And the third was the nuclear reactor in Tabriz, catching fire after it had been bombed. And Iran started racing to get their planes off the ground. The reports coming in are every plane that never made it off the tarmac has been destroyed. It sounds like they've destroyed like 92% of the Iranian Air Force in one fell swoop. Wow. My screen keeps on, give me a minute, I'll fix it here. There, that's better. It's crazy footage. Oh yeah, this is the moment Israel struck Paran, West Iran. Now this is what I was telling you about. There's some of this footage that came out. This is really intense. You can see all of the ammunitions going off. Craziness. So this is a video of on the ground in Iran on one of the strikes. I believe this is right by where they took out the scientists and a whole bunch of the top generals in the military. So this is where they assassinated the regime terrorists. I think this was the Soleimani. Yeah, this is the Soleimani one. And they're wondering if the Khamenei is even alive, if the supreme leader, because I guess two of these buildings are where normally he comes and stays, as well as Soleimani. So, and he hasn't actually shown his face. They're saying he's alive, but nobody knows for sure. Craziness. This is their main uranium refinery. Pretty wild. Absolutely wild. So yeah, it's starting to get pretty tense in the Middle East. It's sad to see, but
That's why I'm once again asking you to strictly follow the guidelines of the Homefront Command. It's very possible that you will need to stay in protected spaces for an extended period of time, much longer than we've been used to until now. Please make sure to stock up, as I'm sure you're already doing, with supplies, food, clothing, and more. But above all, stock up on patience, on faith in the justice of our cause, and in confidence in our victory. There's a reason we named this operation Rising Lion, a people that rises up as a lioness, and as a lion lifts himself up. We are going to achieve many great accomplishments, thanks to you, And thanks to our heroic soldiers.
Wow. Okay, and this is where Iran has
front
fired
opened,
back.
and it's one that's going to stay open a while, it seems.
It's a great question. Israel's been at war for more than 615 days, and this war started with the October 7th massacre, a terrorist attack in the fall of 2023 that led to Hamas, the group in control of Gaza, taking hostages and slaughtering 1,200 people. Some of those hostages still remain in Hamas captivity, 53 of them, and 20 of them are believed to be alive. And so this is a country that hasn't completed mourning following that massacre. They're still waiting for loved ones to come home. And now yet another front has opened up for this country. And so I will say it's a country that is quite resilient, and the people are used to this, unfortunately. They're used to coming under missile and rocket fire. But it does certainly interrupt the flow of the society, because there is a real risk
right
to the
half.
population when we're talking about the potential of drones and ballistic missiles soaring through the skies above major cities like Tel Aviv, where we're standing right now. And then from a logistics standpoint, school is canceled, jobs are canceled, and a parade that was supposed to take place today in Tel Aviv is also canceled. And it just gives you a sense of how this interrupts daily life for the Israeli people. But they are listening to the instructions so far. There's very few people that are out. Normally you would see people running along the beach and they would be enjoying the first day of the weekend. That's not the case today, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Okay, so this is just more backlash coming over this BC Ferries deal, which is good to see. I hope a lot of people understand that we don't have the ability to. There's no competitive shipbuilding in Canada because of not only the Laurentian elite controlling the two places, maybe three, that actually have the capability of building large vessels, but they don't allow for competition because the tax regime in this country is just who in their right mind would want to try and be forced to pay people an excess amount of money knowing that half of it's being taken by the government, and then everything you buy, half of it's being taken by the government. All the energy that you pay for, you're getting taxed at the yin-yang. Half of it goes to the government, and then there's a carbon tax. Our country is in just such... We're so overtaxed. The burden... This is why companies are fleeing. This is why the unemployment rate is high. Trump's tariff might have added like 0.2, 0.3% to that stat. This is bad economics for 10 years. And actually, it started 7 years ago. The warnings 5 years ago were like, holy cow, these policies are going to kill us. And now they're still trying to blame COVID. And all the real economists are saying, well, not only was what they did during the Wuhan, I said the C word, I'm going to get censored for that. Well, not only was the Wuhan an entire abuse of power and unnecessary, but they're going to use it, and here they are. They're still using it. Oh well, it's this is post Wuhan. Yes, what the government did definitely hurt us. Without a doubt, it hurt us. But it was already gone. They had already decimated us through their policies, and what they did during the Wuhan was to try and make sure they could keep closing more of the small independent shops for corporations to fill the slots. And then they kept pushing the migration in to force the fact that mom and pop operations can't afford to compete. Not when you're dealing with conglomerates that are government subsidized. Like, how do you compete against that? Liberals are just uninformed, uneducated, and got their heads so far up the propaganda media. And that's why they're uninformed and uneducated. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe, because yeah, like this is embarrassing.
That BC Ferries has hired a Chinese company to build 4 new vessels for its aging fleet has generated choppy waters, including from its workers.
We listened to the Prime Minister say, build, baby, build. We listened to Premier Eby say, buy BC. And, my members are going to the grocery store. I'm going to the grocery store. We're picking the fruits and vegetables that are local to Canada.
The value of the contract hasn't been released, but the union thinks the jobs should stay in BC to bolster shipbuilding here.
A generational impact in shipbuilding. And, we're probably looking at $1 billion of investment.
Amid a trade war with China that includes tariffs on Canadian seafood and tensions between the U.S. and China, the opposition is also upset.
My big concern here is the instability, both politically and, quite frankly, when you look at the risk, the friction that's building between the United States and China. Who knows in 4 or 5 years where things are at?
The transportation minister emphasizes BC Ferries is not a Crown corporation, even if it gets massive funding from the province.
It's the same over. They're just it, and they're not showing you the reality of what's going on. People are choked. The people who watch channels like mine, the people who are actually paying attention outside of the propaganda bubble, this is a regurgitation of what the reality is. The reality is there's a small amount of people out there, like my subscribers and a few other independent channels like mine have, that are awake. They see what's going on. We show them what's going on, and this is total insanity. The fact that they even thought that they were gonna let China bid on them, like, are you crazy? These guys are our economic enemy. They're not only a political enemy, economic enemy. They go directly against everything that it is to be Canadian. Well, used to be, but now I guess we're voting Liberals in, which is fascist dictators. So there's the CCP, I guess, right? Elbows up. Elbows up.
So this morning at about 4 a.m., we responded to the area of Pine Heights Drive near Pine Valley Drive and Teston Road in the city of Vaughan. The information that we had is that there was a theft of vehicle in progress. Now, in this case, while the call taker was on the phone with our complainant, there were sounds of gunshots that were in the background. Our officers did attend the scene, and they took 4 suspects into custody for attempting to steal a vehicle. They also recovered 1 stolen vehicle that the suspects had arrived in. At this time, we have 3 suspects involved in this that are adults, as well as 1 youth. At this time, these suspects are facing charges for the attempted theft of the vehicle, as well as for possession of property obtained by crime. This investigation is very much still ongoing into these suspects, and we're still determining if any additional charges are going to be laid. Now, at this time, we have also charged a resident that was in possession of a firearm. A 35-year-old man has been charged for discharging a firearm, as well as possession of a weapon for dangerous purpose. Now, we cannot stress enough that using a firearm in a residential neighborhood is incredibly dangerous. It's very fortunate in this case that nobody was hurt, but we always are saying immediately, call 911, don't put yourself in harm's way, and prioritize your personal safety. So defending yourself is entirely based on what...
Okay, here's the worst kicker, okay? This is how deceptive and evil the government is. Are you ready? This gun stat has no place to fall because there is no stats for self-defense. It automatically falls under a gun-related crime, and if he's licensed, which I believe he is a licensed gun owner, it'll make it seem as though a licensed gun owner used his gun for a crime, when in actuality he was defending himself and his property. This is propaganda at the highest level. This is how the stats are used to work against democracy. There's no stat because you can't use a gun in Canada for self-defense. So there can't be a stat for it. Let that sink in. So what this man did, he's totally in his right as far as I believe. Totally in his right. This is why a few good leaders have said, you shoot, shovel, and shut up. Because the government, they don't want you to take away their right to police you and control you when that's your God-given right. And every religion I know of has that belief. So here we go. Add another law-abiding gun owner done wrong, when in actual effect he did right, and he did everything right because he actually didn't take anybody out. He used it as a warning shot. Craziness. We live in a crazy world. Our world is just completely upside down. Socialism.
What's proportional and what's reasonable. In a case like this, it has been determined that a firearm was not the appropriate one. Now, these charges, obviously, we have laid for discharging the firearm as well as for possession of weapons for dangerous purpose, but proportionality and reasonability is entirely determined by the courts. We take theft of vehicle very seriously, in particular in the case where we have 3 adults and a youth charged. Now, one of these adults was on probation, as well as the youth being on a release order for unrelated charges.
And there you have it. And the criminals are also out because they're criminals and it's Canada. So, you just let them out on bail so they can repeat offend. This guy was in full right. He was in full right to do what he did. I can't believe that they charged him. This is just an embarrassment. It's an atrocity against the freedoms and rights of citizens. Just absolute embarrassment. And now Victoria, you reap what you sow. Somebody quoted in my comments before, although they used it wrong in a bad text. I'm going to correct it. This is the right text to use it. You reap what you sow.
If Keith Johnson's lease was set to renew tomorrow, he's not sure he'd sign on for another few years.
I would think that we might exit.
That's after the candy shop's 15-year run in the core of BC's capital. Of the roughly 630 business owners who responded to a Downtown Victoria Business Association survey, 48% say they'd consider leaving too.
Post-pandemic, we've noticed a lot more kind of street disorder, crime, mental health issues.
The DVBA's annual report is flagging those very issues, as it's done many times before.
They are not looking to wait 3 and 5 years for changes. They need action right now.
The association wants to see immediate access to addictions and mental health treatment and more funding for the justice system.
Small number of people committing the majority of the crimes, if they were actually held in custody, you would see an immediate reduction in crime.
The province did not get back to us by deadline. As for the city, the mayor says it's launching a community safety plan soon, which could help address requests for increased police and bylaw enforcement. Her hope for businesses by fall?
I think that they'll be pleased because we've heard them and we're taking some significant actions.
The DVBA says 11% of storefronts are vacant, up from roughly 3% in 2019. New businesses are moving in though, including this plant shop, which had several reasons for putting down roots a year and a half ago.
Just the amount of walk by, there's great shops, seems like Johnson's really picking up, lots of new businesses moving in. The ocean, the tourism, there's lots of good reasons.
Despite downtown's challenges, he thinks the business will bloom.
We're still building our following here, so we've been making money, but we could definitely be busier. And now that the locals are discovering us, it's picking up.
The DVBA hopes more business owners can share in that optimism if its request for urgent action is met. Anna McMillan, CTV News, Victoria.
It's only going to get worse until the soft on crime policies are changed, until the Liberal Party is completely decimated. This isn't going to change, and EB's got to go. They're a socialist system too. Look at what EB's done. Look at the corruption. And you know what's crazy is the Conservative Party. There's rumors coming out that I've been trying to do a little bit of fact checking on. It seems like they're in deep too. There's a bunch of crap going on in that party. We need total political reform in this country. It's just out of control. And media is the main driver of all of this because of the questions they ask, the questions they don't ask, what they don't air, what they don't show you, what they hide from you. They'll show you one protest and say that this is supposed to be good and you're supposed to be on board, and they'll hide another protest, even though the other protest has more people and is actually fighting for a freedom, a cause. But no, instead they're going to choose this other one where they're covering their faces. Wow. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Craziness. It never ends. And now, this is where I'm a firm believer in gun laws. Like this poor guy.
56-year-old Satwinder Sharma of Abbotsford was shot and killed in broad daylight Wednesday afternoon inside the construction and labor contracting business he owns in Surrey. It's the city's third confirmed homicide of the year. RCMP responded to calls of shots fired between 160th Street and 84th Avenue. Despite life-saving measures, Sharma was pronounced dead at the scene. RCMP's Integrated Homicide Investigation Team has since taken over the investigation and can't confirm any suspects.
They're certainly brazen, and the fact that it occurred during the day, we're fortunate that nobody else was hurt. It is a targeted incident, though, so we're looking into all aspects of what happened.
The surrounding businesses were closed and taped off throughout the day Thursday as IHIT was still processing the scene.
Obviously, it's a very difficult time, but we're working diligently to identify a motive.
The shooting happened at this business complex on 84th Avenue, right across the street from the Fleetwood Community Center and right next door to an elementary school.
Well, I'm kind of shocked. Of course, I didn't expect anything like this to happen in this area. And as far as I know, it's always been a safe neighborhood.
I was terrified for their safety. This never happens in Fleetwood. It's so safe. Nothing has ever happened like this before in this area.
Meantime, IHIT says they're working closely with the family of the victim to provide support and are...
Now, they said it was the third shooting this year. And what's that lady saying? So obviously, media isn't doing their job. Because if people were aware, maybe they would vote differently. That's why I'm here, to keep showing you. Back to Smith, the greatest premier.
Government, and you inherit problems that are many decades.
Alberta's premier booed and shouted over at a town hall in Fort Macleod Wednesday. She came to southern Alberta along with several cabinet ministers to explain her government's decision to allow some coal mining on the eastern edge of the Rocky Mountains.
When we came in, we had a multitude of coal companies that had launched a $14 billion lawsuit.
I don't care.
But many in the crowd didn't want to hear it. They and the NDP are demanding a stop to any coal mining in the region, even if it costs the government some money to settle with companies.
Now, what you heard was 15 people out of that crowd booing. This is what the media reports. Fake news. Yes, she was getting booed. Yes, there were a bunch of NDPers who went in there to purposely try to boo her, which is that's politics, that happens. But it's the media's job to tell you and to show you exactly how many people were there booing and what the majority of the crowd was doing, looking at them going, "Are you guys a bunch of idiots?" Which they don't show. Just the media, unbelievable. And I'm just going to end off with this really wild clip.
An unsecured load accelerating into a chase along Highway 97. A car appearing to cut off a truck, all captured on dashcam video by a DBI transport truck following behind and carrying a modular home.
Car passed the truck. I stayed in the right lane. They started bobbing and weaving.
Thorne, driving a 14-foot wide mobile home destined for Vancouver Island, says the cars in front of him slowed down and he followed suit.
They abruptly moved back to the left, started slowing down again, and then they abruptly stopped. I swerved to the right. At the same time, I applied the brakes, and that's when the cross members in the house let go, and
the home ending up on the road after Thorne was forced to brake suddenly. Global News attended the office for the company with matching vehicles to the ones seen in the video. When we reached out to Kelowna Drywall Limited, they declined to comment due to an active police investigation. Kelowna RCMP say they are investigating multiple infractions against the Motor Vehicle Act and are asking witnesses or anyone with dashcam video to come forward.
They put their own lives and everybody else at risk, honestly. They put me at risk. I got to get home to my family.
DBI Transport stands behind Thorne's driving, stating that the load was properly secured and proper protocols were followed.
We always leave that room, but unfortunately yesterday the room was, elapsed very quickly because of the brake check thing they were doing, so we didn't have that room to stop.
A reminder to not let tempers flare behind the wheel, or a house may end up blocking traffic on the highway. Sydney Morton, Global News, Kelowna.
Craziness. Craziness. Oh, Canada. What can we do, hey? What can we do? Well, you guys, I'm going to call that an episode. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. And if you are, make sure you punch that notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. I'm Alias Tagayo. You've been watching Canadian Citizen Journal. Stay informed.